Welcome to Association Rockstars, where we hear about the journey and insights of amazing association executives and partners who are building the association industry of tomorrow. I'm your host, Lowell Aplebaum. I'm the CEO of Vista, Cova, where we partner with organizations on facilitation, strategy, and governance. And we are so excited today to have our first individual return rockstar for time 2 on the show. To have back with us Nabil El Ghoroury, PhD, CAE. Nabil is a psychologist and principal at Executive Therapy and Consulting. Combining his experience as an association executive and a licensed mental health professional, he now conducts virtual psychotherapy with executives and leaders and is authorized to see patients in over 30 states, as well as speaking about stress management, imposter experience, creating a culture of wellness, and other mental health topics to associations and organizations. Nabil, we are so excited to have you back with us again.
Well, thank you for having me back. It's an honor. I appreciate it.
You know, there's so many reasons I'm excited to have you back. One is that when we previously spoke, you were sort of inside associations, and now you're helping executives of associations. And so that transition to what you're seeing about the needs of leadership is going to be a key place for us to discuss, but also because what you are providing to associations and executives in terms of those who are rock stars and what we don't see beneath the surface, if you will, right? What's not the facade. Yep. I'm imagining you have a lot of insights about, and I'd love to talk about. I have to start where we always start. And I know we asked you last time, so I'm going to ask you in the context, I think, of what you're doing this time and sort of the new path that you're on. We love to talk about superpowers, right? The strengths we bring to the table. Clearly, you have many of them with how you're helping so many executives. If I was to ask you for like the life that you are living and the strength that you're bringing, what is a superpower that you have that you find that you're using in this journey?
You know, my biggest power right now is forgetting, letting go of things and forgetting. Listening to people talk about their issues is quite a challenge. And something that I've been really effective at is sort of letting that go at the end of the day. And I have some strategies for that. You know, I'd have a shutdown ritual every day where I transition out of my home office and go upstairs to the living space, watch some TV, after dinner. And those things really help me not think about work for the rest of the night. So I think, and that's something that a lot of people have a hard time with.
Well, I think I would agree with that. I speak to so many colleagues that especially are in executive seats, but I think across organizations, they used to use commute times for that, right? Flip on the music, flip on like the podcast, and I come home able to like leave it in the office. And when the office is like 50 feet from here, that's not the case anymore. So are you seeing, I love that it's a strength of yours. Are you seeing that that's sort of prevalent, that people don't have that as a strength and are challenged by it?
Oh, absolutely. And not only that, when we had a commute, when we went into the office, people had a set time they left. And you might leave a little late, but you rarely stayed 2 hours late unintentionally. Like when you knew you were going to stay 2 hours late, you planned for it.
Right.
Now, because you're home, people keep on working longer and longer, don't have that intentional end time that was close to what was before the pandemic, but it can bleed into dinner time, evening, late at night. Before you know it, it's 7 p.m., 8 p.m. And so, and then everyone is doing that. So you're getting work at that time. So it is really common for people to have a problem not knowing how and when to end work and just keep on working until exhaustion or hanger.
I think my children could tell you that the happy Abba is a well-snacked Abba. So I can hear you.
Oh, yes.
I hear you about the anger piece of it. I think we look at an executive context and lens of what you're talking about. Of course, many levels of employees have end times, but I think you would run into a overarching culture. Like, when's the CEO ever really off? And they need to take vacations, but like many CEOs feel like 5 is not it. Like, or any C-suites, right? They're not hourly.
Right.
And so do you think that this is if we look at through like an executive lens, right, that C-suite lens, do you think this is new, right? Because it feels like there's always been a culture of like working many, many hours. Is this different at all if you're at a higher pay grade, right? If you're at a higher management position?
I think I think part of it is new because I do think people are working later than they did before. I do
Yeah.
think that is factual, but I think the other part is, particularly for working remote, a lot of the social aspects of work are gone. You know, the walking by to someone's office and chit-chatting for a few minutes before meetings, water cooler chat, all these, I mean, so you're at the office 10 hours,
Yeah.
but there's probably an hour you're not, you're working on, you know, emotional support for your team, not necessarily grinding into data or developing a new strategic initiative. And so instead, you don't have any of those social rewards. You have less distractions to sort of help you, you know, throughout the day.
Yes.
And you have a bleed in into your personal time. I think the way to think about work is this, you know, life is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And we've been sprinting since March of 2020.
Mm.
And so we have to get in this mindset of, you know, how can you take care of yourself to be the most effective leader that you can be? I really think self-care is not selfish. It is actually beneficial for you, but also for your team and your company.
Yes. I think many people would not nod yes to that, even if their calendars don't reflect their nod. I think they would, right, agree with the theory of it. I don't know about you, but I've noticed, we were chatting before, that travel is something, especially is for work, is something frequent. And at least I'm noticing on my flights more than ever, the random person sitting next to me in the airport that you say hi, and all of a sudden, like, there's the next 45 minutes of just like needing to like tell you about everything that's going on, because it feels like they don't have anywhere else they're talking about it to.
Yeah.
And so safe person, it's a little empathy sitting next to them, gets it all. And so
Yeah.
I don't know if you've run into anything like that. That's a general sort of like viewpoint of what you're experiencing in the world.
Well, so I was traveling yesterday, and for those of you who weren't traveling yesterday, there was a national ground stop. And so, you know, I go to the airport early. So my flight was at 8:51. I was at the airport at 6:15 because with my name, you know, Nabil El Ghoroury, we don't want to rush through the airport.
Right.
So we go slowly through the airport. We stay calm, we go slowly. And so my flight was supposed to take off at 8:51, the national ground stop. All flights before 9 a.m. were delayed. And our flight ended up, so 8:51, our flight ended up leaving at 1:15 p.m. And so and they kept slowly updating the time. So it would say 9:30, 10. And when it said 10 o'clock and it was 9:30, the gate agent came and said, you know, it does say 10 o'clock. However, the flight doesn't have permission to leave yet. And so we don't think, and it takes 40 minutes to board. So I don't think it's going to happen.
Right.
And then the pilot came and shared that information and sort of, and was very frank with us. And we kind of, everyone at the gate sort of chuckled, but it really decreased the tension.
Yeah.
The lesson to me is honesty is really effective in leadership. They're like, they didn't have to say that stuff, but when they did, it took the edge off of everyone in the crowd. You know, the other thing I noticed was some parents really effectively distracting their kids, letting their kids kind of sort of run, play TV, you know, play on their video games, TV, iPad, and just watching that, seeing how distraction, what can you do to distract yourself? Because if you're just sitting there stewing, you're just going to get angrier and angrier. So distracting yourself. And then finally, I saw at like 3.5 hours, I saw a lady get up and go angrily approach the gate agent, who had switched by this point because their shift had ended, and so they left and went home. And I thought to myself, what is getting angry at the agent going to do? And I
Yeah.
was get irritated as well. So that's when I started doing some deep breaths. And that is a strategy I teach everyone. And it really works. It just sort of mellows you out.
Yeah.
So these are the lessons I saw yesterday on our flight. And when I landed in San Diego, I looked at the frustrated passengers waiting, and I thought, I wonder if they had the same kind of honest gate agent that we had.
We
I
did.
didn't think so.
It's interesting. I definitely think in the absence of narrative, we create narrative.
Oh,
right?
yes. Yes.
And I don't know if you have any viewpoints in terms of colleagues, professionals, and executives in the space. And there's always this challenge of transparency. And do you tell? What do you tell? But I don't think it's often thought about the other side. Like, the things we don't tell isn't that there isn't narrative. It's that the narrative is going to be created in the minds of the people who don't hear it, especially when you think about internal and staff.
I mean, right now we are in a recession. You're seeing big tech companies start to lay off people. Their revenue may be going down. That'll affect all the trade associations. Their revenue is going to go down because incomes are going, the gross revenues of their members are going down. I think we have to be realistic about employees fearful for another set of layoffs. Like, that is a potential. We saw that happen in 2020. And so people are going to want to know what's going on. I do think it is imperative for CEOs and C-suite folks to be as honest as they can be about what the economics are, and let people know we have enough reserves to get through this year, or we believe we have enough revenue to get through this year, or things are going to be tight. We're going to start making some cuts. Because in the absence of that information, people always assume the worst.
Absolutely.
And they will assume they're going to get laid off. Particularly departments that were cut dramatically in 2020. So the meetings folks, I think, are going to be scared of that.
Self-doubts always come in the unknown. I have two lines I want to go down. I think I'll go through this one first. If you think about Nabil a few years ago when you were inside an organization as its CEO, would Nabil today, right, who's leveraging your expertise as a licensed mental health professional to help executives be healthier and lead healthier organizations, where do you think Nabil as the CEO did that really well? And if you were consulting for Nabil a few years ago, when you were an executive, like, is there anything that if you were advising him, that you would have done differently with that lens on? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. I think the thing that I did well as CEO, particularly during the pandemic, was communication. I ended up filming a video for my team every day to keep them updated on stuff. And at the beginning it was focused on motivation, but then it became motivation, keeping team building, social justice after George Floyd's murder. And then once we realized that remote was going to stick around, I started thanking teams for different work and sort of recognizing as many staff as I could. And that was really effective. It kept the team very well informed. They felt like they saw me every day. People commented on it. People looked forward to it. I found out later that some people shared it with their families. Like, they would show their kids, look what my boss is saying. I would do funny stuff too, because that's me. If you're working with me, we're going to laugh.
Right.
And so so that, I think, was really good. I think probably what I could have done better was do some of that communication with my board. I was struggling there towards the end in particular. But and if you had told me 3 years ago, Nabil, you're going to go back to practicing therapy, I would have said, are you kidding me? I came this close to giving up my license. I came because I was
We're all glad you didn't, my friend.
Oh yeah. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm keeping my CAE. Like I am doing those hours and
Yes.
paying that 350. I'm keeping that. I'm keeping my CAE because I'm not going to take that test again. Um,
Yeah. But I think
yeah,
that, look, but it gives a unique, and it's why you are so well positioned in this moment to sort of walk both sides of the line. When I speak to a lot of CEOs, I mean, they talk about the sort of this pivotal place they play where they need to lead the staff, right, and be in charge, and everything from supervise to inspire to care and all that. And they need to work for the board and with the board and manage and mitigate those relationships, right? But that place in the middle of the hourglass, that pivot place, is incredibly lonely because you can't have friends on either side.
right.
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 So I'm just wondering, as you think about that as a unique place for chief staff executives who within the realm of their everyday work actually have to have good relationships, but also are isolated in terms of being able to like have a full disclosure, connection, camaraderie.
Right.
I'm wondering, in the conversations you have with the CEOs you work with, what do you see as places where they address that in a healthy way?
I think one strategy really important is to have your network of CEOs before you start.
Mm.
You know, and so that means sort of getting involved, staying involved with ASAE or your local SAEs. So when I was in San Diego, I got involved with with Cal SAE and the San Diego region. And while it was not super active, I did meet several other CEOs locally, and developed some and then maintained my relationships with all my DC friends.
Yeah.
I knew lots of DC CEOs, and I would consult with them when things happened. And then one of the great things about being in San Diego is that every national association eventually goes to San Diego within 5 years.
I mean,
Seriously.
it's a great place. It's a great city to go to, and they have the space for it. So
It's got the space. It's always a pleasant venue. And it is a destination that lots of people want to go to. So you generally get a boost in registration because San Diego is a destination. So whenever people came, I would make an effort to see them for a meal. And so I got to see a lot of people over the course of, it was only 2 years where that happened. And then towards the end of 21, or 21, yeah, at the end of 21, I started to see a couple more folks. Meetings started returning, but I saw at least, I want to say probably a dozen people. So that network is really critical because you do need someone to commiserate with, because it is lonely at the top.
yeah, the time's going by. I ran into, knowing we were having this conversation, I was in a networking this morning that this regularly goes on, and one of the people attending, it's Nicole Araujo's coffee chat, which is one.
Oh yeah, of course.
But one of the people attending was sharing a story from their organization where unexpectedly a staff member didn't wake up, like in their life, all of a sudden a member of the team of the staff passed away, not expected, just out of no, right?
Oh,
And so we never prepare for moments of loss and crisis. And so I was trying to think, like, I'm literally speaking to Nabil today, right? Like,
I wish I'd been on that call. I would have been. I'm on there every once in a while.
I know. Well, so I think that I was trying to think, there's so many questions, but I think if I get to ask you one, this is the question I would ask. If you're the executive of the organization, when a tragedy like that happens, what should that executive be sure not to do? Right? Like,
oh, okay.
Does that make?
Yeah. I'll tell you what not to do is
Yes.
ignore it. What not to do is ignore it. Like, not say anything. I think that is the worst thing a CEO could do, is be silent about it.
Yeah.
I think you should acknowledge the pain and grief that people are feeling.
Yeah.
Particularly if it was out of the blue. I saw that happen when I was working at APA. A staff member uh, basically stroked and died in the parking lot. And I don't know how they made it to work. I think it was just rote memory of driving, but they got to work and then they died there that day. They weren't part of my team, so I heard about it through someone else, but
Right.
I think people who worked close with that person just need some time to take care of themselves if they need it after that. I think the team going to services, if there's a wake, if there's a funeral, that's a good reason to for a team to stop work for a period of time, or even the whole team if it's a small staff, and even if they don't go,
Right.
people have the day. It's like, we are taking a day of grief for our person. At the same time, business moves on, so
Right.
you do have to fill that need. Be careful about like putting out the job ad the next day. Just be careful about that, because that communicates you're just a cog in the machine.
Yes.
But you obviously have to keep moving things forward. If that was your meeting planner, you have to keep the meeting preparing. That is very hard, though. I would just be doing a lot of empathic listening.
Well, I think there's like 5 different great points of insight in that response, which is exactly what I was hoping for. We've even gone a little over, so I'm just going to sort of ask this as a final. We'll go from stages of grief, hopefully, to place of hope. We're early in the year in 2023 as we're talking, and so executives who nodded their head yes, that investing in yourself and mental health makes sense, but their calendar doesn't reflect it yet, right? If you were to give any sort of insight or advice to set the intention and follow through in terms of like leading a healthier mental health year ahead for association executives, any thoughts or advice to close out in terms of what they should prioritize in order for that to be the case?
I think the first thing to do, honestly, is pick a strategy you want to do to make your life better and schedule it. Put it in your schedule. Like if you're going to do some deep breathing or meditation, pick a time and put it 5 minutes, put it in your schedule. That's what we do for everything else. Why not do it for time for yourself? What strategy that is, I think, is an individual case, and people need to choose what works best for them. What I do as a psychologist is I offer a lot of options and say, what do you think will work best for you? And we test it out. And but I would say schedule it, because that is probably the biggest factor. Like, they think I don't have time, so they don't do it. But if it's on your calendar, if it's on your Outlook calendar,
yes,
you will do it.
I love it. Nabil, every time we talk, I learn, I'm enthralled and engaged. You are a brilliant add to our community. So thank you for sharing with us today your journey, the journey we should all be thinking about. And for everyone listening, feel free, we'll put Nabil's LinkedIn certainly in the comments as well. Please do feel free to connect with Nabil and learn more about the brilliance he's bringing to our space. Thank you to Amy Hager, who, as always, is making sure that your conversations and the coordination and all the brilliance translates from the screen to all the places. And to everyone who listens in and attends, our community continues to grow. And so if you're finding insight and brilliance, please do feel free to share it. Tell us who else we should have on here as well. And we look forward to having a great year of learning together. And until next time, Association Rock On.